The massive crystal spires of Centauri Prime stretched toward the violet sky like frozen lightning. Within the grandest tower, the Galactic Council's emergency session buzzed with tension. Representatives from 100 worlds filled the amphitheater, their various forms creating a rainbow of alien biology under the prismatic lights. At the center of it all stood a small figure that seemed impossibly out of place. Maya Chen, barely 22 Earth years old, wore simple civilian clothes among beings draped in ceremonial robes and military uniforms. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her brown eyes held a determination that many mistook for naive stubbornness. "This is preposterous," rumbled Chancellor Vexistar, his scaled hide shifting from deep purple to angry crimson. The Draknari leader's four arms gestured dismissively at Maya. "The Empire faces its greatest threat in millennia, and the humans send us this child." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. The crystalline Altarians chimed their displeasure in harmonic frequencies that made the air shimmer. The biomechanical hegemony delegates clicked and whirred in their own language, clearly unimpressed. Maya stood perfectly still, letting the criticism wash over her. She had expected this reaction. Humans were still the newest members of the Galactic Empire, barely 3 centuries since first contact. Most species still saw them as primitive upstarts who had stumbled into space travel through luck rather than skill. "The Void Syndicate has destroyed 12 colonies in the Outer Rim," continued General Korth, his insectoid features clicking with agitation. "Their dark matter weapons tear through our strongest shields like paper. Our greatest military minds have failed to develop any defense. And Earth sends us—" "What exactly? What possible contribution could one untested human make?" Maya finally spoke, her voice calm and clear despite the hostile environment. "I'm here to offer a solution to your dark matter problem." The chamber erupted in laughter. Not polite chuckles, but full-throated mockery from dozens of species. The sound was a cacophony of different alien expressions of disbelief. "A solution?" wheezed Ambassador Thias, her gas-filled atmosphere suit trembling with mirth. "Child, our top scientists have been working on this for months. Beings with intellects that span centuries, access to the greatest laboratories in the galaxy. What could a human possibly know that we don't?" Maya reached into her simple canvas bag and pulled out a device no larger than her palm. It looked remarkably mundane compared to the advanced technology surrounding her, just brushed metal with a few indicator lights and a simple activation switch. "This," she said, holding it up for all to see. The laughter grew louder. Chancellor Vextar's scales flushed an even deeper red with amusement. "A toy? You bring us a toy?" "It's a dark matter dispersal field generator," Maya explained, her voice never losing its steady tone. "It creates a quantum resonance that destabilizes dark matter particles, causing them to lose cohesion and harmlessly dissipate." The scientific advisors in the gallery began muttering among themselves. Dr. Zephys, the renowned Altarian physicist, stepped forward. His crystalline form caught the light as he spoke in melodic tones that were automatically translated. "Young human, dark matter manipulation requires massive particle accelerators and enormous energy expenditures. The theoretical framework alone spans thousands of complex equations. Your device is far too small to generate the necessary field strength." Maya nodded respectfully. "You're absolutely right about the energy requirements using conventional methods. This doesn't use conventional methods." She activated the device. Immediately, every sensor in the chamber began registering impossible readings. The air around Maya shimmered with an energy field that their instruments couldn't properly classify. Several delegates stepped back in alarm. "The field is stable," she announced, reading from the device's simple display. "Effective radius of approximately 50 meters. Any dark matter weapons fired within this range will lose cohesion before reaching their target." General Korth's mandibles clicked rapidly, his species equivalent of nervous laughter. Assuming that trinket actually works, which I highly doubt, how long before the field collapses? Our readings suggest enormous energy consumption. Maya glanced at the device. Current power draw is approximately 12 watts. Battery life should be about 6 months of continuous operation. The chamber fell silent. Dr. Zephas's crystalline form darkened with confusion. That's impossible. The energy requirements for quantum field manipulation on that scale should be measured in megawatts at minimum. Not if you approach the problem differently, Maya said. Everyone's been trying to brute force the solution, using massive energy to overwhelm dark matter's binding forces. This device works with dark matter's natural properties instead of against them. It's like the difference between breaking down a door and simply finding the right key. Ambassador Thys floated closer, her suit's sensors focusing on the small device. Even if we accept your claims, the technological advancement required for such miniaturization would take our greatest minds decades to achieve. Humans have only been in space for 3 centuries. Your industrial base is laughably primitive compared to species that have been spacefaring for millennia. Maya smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. It wasn't a smug expression, but rather one of quiet confidence. You're absolutely right. Humans didn't invent this technology. The implication hit the room like a physical blow. If humans hadn't developed this technology themselves, then someone had given it to them. Someone with capabilities that surpassed even the Empire's greatest scientists. Chancellor Vextar leaned forward on his throne, his earlier amusement completely gone. Who? He demanded. What species shared this technology with humanity? What alliance have you formed behind the Empire's back? No alliance, Maya replied calmly, and no species exactly. This technology comes from one individual. My father figured out the theoretical framework about 15 years ago. It took him another decade to build the first working prototype. Dr. Zephas's harmonic voice carried undertones of disbelief. One individual? Impossible. The complexity involved would require a team of specialists across multiple fields. Quantum mechanics, exotic matter physics, field dynamics, miniaturization technology. No single mind could master all of these disciplines to such a degree. Most minds couldn't, Maya agreed, but my father isn't most people. General Korth's compound eyes focused intently on her. What is his name? What credentials does he possess? Which Earth institution trained him? Maya's smile broadened slightly. She had been waiting for this question since the moment she stepped into the chamber. Around her, delegates leaned forward, suddenly realizing that they might have been too quick to dismiss this young human. My father never attended any formal institution, she said. He's largely self-taught. But perhaps you know him by his reputation rather than his education. The chamber held its collective breath. Even the ambient sounds of life support systems seemed muted as every being present waited for her answer. Maya looked directly at Chancellor Vexatar, her brown eyes steady and unwavering. His name is Dr. James Chen, though I believe many of you might know him better by his military call sign from the Centauri Wars. A chill seemed to settle over the chamber. Several delegates exchanged glances, recognition beginning to dawn on their faces. The Centauri Wars were legendary throughout the galaxy, humanity's first major conflict as members of the Galactic Empire, and one of the most decisive military victories in recorded history. Impossible, whispered Ambassador Thys, though her voice carried less certainty than before. That was decades ago. Maya nodded. 37 years to be exact. My father was 28 at the time, the youngest tactical advisor in human military history, and according to your own military records, one of the most brilliant strategic minds the galaxy has ever produced. The silence stretched longer now, heavy with implications. General Korth's clicking had stopped entirely. Dr. Zephas's crystalline form had gone completely dark, a sign of deep contemplation among his species. Chancellor Vexitar's scales had shifted to a pale, almost white color, the Draknari equivalent of shock. "What call sign?" he asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer and dreaded hearing it confirmed. Maya's smile became something altogether different now, not smug or superior, but carrying the quiet pride of a daughter speaking about her father's legendary achievements. The device in her hand continued to hum softly, its impossible technology a testament to brilliance that the galaxy was only beginning to understand. "Ghost," she said simply. The word hit the chamber like a shockwave. Ghost, the mysterious human strategist whose tactical innovations had turned the tide of 3 separate battles during the Centauri conflict. Ghost, whose identity had remained classified at the highest levels of Imperial security. Ghost, whose strategic frameworks were still studied in military academies across 100 worlds. And now they knew that Ghost had spent the last 37 years not resting on his military laurels, but quietly revolutionizing the fundamental understanding of exotic matter physics. Maya looked around the chamber at the shocked faces of beings who had been mocking her just minutes before. "Now then," she said, her voice carrying a new authority that none could deny, "shall we discuss how to save your colonies?" The emergency tactical briefing room buzzed with nervous energy as Maya demonstrated her father's technology to the Empire's top military minds. Gone was the mockery from the main chamber. Now, hardened veterans and brilliant scientists watched in respectful silence as she manipulated dark matter fields with equipment that shouldn't exist. Admiral Kesahai, the Empire's supreme naval commander, studied the readings on her holographic display with increasing amazement. The 4-armed Valdari officer had commanded fleets through 7 major conflicts, but nothing in her experience had prepared her for this. "The field strength is remarkable," she admitted, her gravelly voice carrying notes of professional respect. "But battlefield conditions are far more complex than laboratory demonstrations. The Void Syndicate doesn't just use dark matter weapons. They coordinate them in devastating patterns. Can your device handle multiple simultaneous attacks?" Maya nodded, pulling out a larger device from her bag. "This is the military-grade version. It can project a defensive field around an entire starship, and the coverage area expands with multiple units working in sync." She activated the device, and the room's atmosphere immediately changed. Every tactical officer could feel the difference. A subtle shift in the air that spoke of incredible energies barely contained within elegant technology. General Korth approached cautiously, his insectoid features still clicking with disbelief. "The power requirements alone should require a dedicated reactor. How does it function within normal ship parameters?" "Standard fusion reactor can power 12 units simultaneously," Maya explained, her technical knowledge clearly inherited from her father. "The quantum resonance creates a cascade effect that actually becomes more efficient with additional units. It's like a choir. Individual voices combine to create something more powerful than the sum of their parts." Dr. Zephas materialized beside them, his crystalline form now bright with intellectual excitement. "The theoretical implications are staggering. This represents a complete paradigm shift in our understanding of exotic matter interaction." "How did your father develop these principles?" Maya's expression grew thoughtful. "He says the military taught him to think differently about problems. During the Centauri Wars, he noticed that conventional tactics failed because everyone was fighting the war they expected, not the war they were actually in. He applied the same philosophy to physics." The room fell quiet as the assembled officers absorbed this information. The legend of Ghost was known to every military professional in the galaxy, but the details had remained classified for decades. Now they were learning that the mysterious strategist had brought the same revolutionary thinking to scientific research. Admiral Kesahai stepped forward, her tone serious but respectful. "Miss Chen, these devices could change the entire balance of power in the galaxy. Surely your government understands the strategic implications. Why share this technology with the Empire instead of maintaining human advantage?" Maya's answer came without hesitation. "Because that's not who we are. My father didn't develop this technology to give humanity an edge over other species. He created it because the Void Syndicate's attacks have killed millions of innocent people across dozens of worlds. The victims include humans, but they also include Draknari children, Altarian colonies, Valdari settlements. Suffering has no species boundary." General Korth's clicking stopped entirely. "Your father, Ghost, he could have used this technology to make humanity the dominant force in the galaxy. Instead, he chooses to share it freely." "Not freely," Maya corrected with a slight smile. "He has conditions." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Admiral Kesahai's forearms crossed in a defensive posture. "What conditions? What does humanity demand in exchange?" Maya pulled out a data pad and read from prepared notes. "First, the technology will be shared with all Empire species equally. No one gets privileged access. Second, the manufacturing specifications will be open source within the Empire. Any world can produce the devices locally. Third, the technology can never be used offensively. It's defensive only." Dr. Zephys chimed with surprise. "No payment? No territorial concessions? No preferential trade agreements?" "Those aren't the conditions that matter to my father," Maya said. "He has one more requirement, and it's non-negotiable." Every being in the room leaned forward. This was it. The true price of salvation from the Void Syndicate's devastating weapons. Maya looked directly at Admiral Kesahai. "He wants to personally oversee the tactical deployment against the Void Syndicate, not as a human representative, but as a temporary advisor to the Imperial fleet." The silence stretched for long moments. General Korth spoke first, his voice carrying undertones of nervous respect. "Ghost wants to come out of retirement?" "He never really retired," Maya said. "He just shifted from military strategy to scientific research. But the Void Syndicate's attacks have convinced him that some problems require both approaches." Admiral Kesahai exchanged glances with the other senior officers. The implications were staggering. Ghost, the legendary tactician whose strategies were still classified at the highest levels, wanted to personally command their response to the galaxy's greatest threat. "Miss Chen," the Admiral said carefully, "your father's reputation is substantial, but he's been away from active military service for decades. Modern fleet tactics have evolved significantly since the Centauri Wars." Maya's smile carried just a hint of her father's confidence. "Admiral, with respect, the Void Syndicate has been defeating your modern tactics consistently. Maybe it's time to try something older." Before anyone could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the facility. Emergency lights bathed the room in harsh red as a priority communication channel opened automatically. The holographic display showed a frantic communications officer from the Outer Rim. "Emergency bulletin to all Imperial forces. The Void Syndicate has launched a massive assault on the Kepler defense platform. 12 attack ships, full dark matter bombardment. The platform's shields are failing rapidly." Admiral Kesahai stepped toward the display. "Estimated time until platform destruction?" 6 hours, Admiral. Maybe less if they focus their fire." The platform protected one of the Empire's most important industrial worlds, home to over 2 billion beings. If it fell, the Syndicate would have a clear path to the core systems. Maya moved to the center of the room, her father's device still humming in her hands. "How long would it take to get a ship to Kepler?" 5 hours at maximum burn, General Korth answered automatically, then realized the implications. "But that's cutting it impossibly close. And we can't be certain your technology will work in actual combat conditions. Maya activated her communication device, sending a priority signal on a frequency none of them recognized. Dad, it's Maya. Are you monitoring Imperial channels? The response came immediately, and every officer in the room felt their blood run cold. The voice was calm, measured, and carried an authority that transcended species boundaries. After 37 years, Ghost was speaking on an open Imperial military channel. Hello, sweetheart. Yes, I've been watching. The Kepler situation? They need proof that the technology works in combat, and they need it now. A pause. I see. Are they prepared for a field demonstration? Admiral Kesshai found her voice. Dr. Chen? Ghost? What kind of demonstration? Ghost's reply carried the quiet confidence that had once terrified the enemies of the Empire. Admiral Kesshai, I assume. I've read your tactical assessments of syndicate attack patterns. Very thorough work. But you're thinking defensively when you need to think strategically. Sir? The Kepler assault isn't random. It's bait. The syndicate wants you to commit your main fleet to save the platform. While you're engaged there, they'll launch their real attack on the core systems. Classic misdirection, though competently executed. The Admiral's 4 arms moved in agitation. If that's true, we're facing an impossible choice. Sacrifice Kepler or expose the Heart Worlds. There's a third option, Ghost said calmly. Maya, please give the Admiral the portable field generator. I'm transmitting coordinates for an immediate jump to Kepler. You have 1 ship that can get there in time if you leave now. Maya handed over the device, but Admiral Kesshai hesitated. What ship? Nothing in our fleet is fast enough. Actually, you do have one, Maya said quietly. It arrived 3 days ago and has been docked at the civilian port. You probably didn't notice it because it looks like an ordinary human transport. The realization hit Admiral Kesshai like a physical blow. Your father is here? On Zentari Prime? Maya's smile carried the pride of a daughter who had grown up hearing stories of impossible victories against overwhelming odds. Admiral, he has been here for 3 days. He knew this attack was coming before your intelligence services did. The question isn't whether the technology works in combat. It's whether you're ready to see how a true master uses it. Through the communication channel, Ghost's voice carried the same quiet authority that had once commanded the loyalty of beings across 100 worlds. Admiral, my ship is already prepped for departure. The question is simple. Do you trust the man who helped save the Empire once to help save it again? Admiral Kesshai looked around the room at her officers, seeing her own mixture of hope and terror reflected in their faces. Ghost wasn't just offering them advanced technology, he was offering to personally lead them against an enemy that had defeated their best efforts. Dr. Chen, she said formally, the Imperial fleet would be honored to have your assistance. Good. Maya, time to go. Bring your emergency kit. We'll be in combat within 4 hours. As Maya gathered her equipment, Admiral Kesshai realized that everything had changed in the span of a single conversation. They weren't just gaining new defensive technology. They were getting Ghost himself, emerging from decades of scientific research to once again defend the galaxy. The war against the Void Syndicate was about to become very different. The bridge of the human vessel Prometheus looked nothing like what Admiral Kesshai had expected. Where Imperial ships featured grand command centers with towering displays and ceremonial elements, this bridge was compact, efficient, and focused entirely on function. Every surface held purpose-built equipment that seemed decades ahead of anything in the Imperial fleet. Dr. James Chen stood at the center of it all. And the Admiral finally understood why his call sign had been Ghost. Even now, at 65, he moved with a quiet precision that made him seem to fade into the background until he spoke. Then his presence filled the entire space with calm authority. "Admiral, please review the tactical display," he said, gesturing to a holographic representation of the Kepler system. "The Syndicate's positioning confirms my earlier assessment. This is a feint." HFY studied the formation with professional interest. Their heavy cruisers are indeed positioned for rapid withdrawal, but the bombardment of the defense platform is genuine. They're destroying it. "Of course they are," Ghost replied calmly. "Effective misdirection requires real commitment. They're willing to expend significant resources to sell the deception. But observe the timing of their attacks." Maya, working at a nearby console, highlighted the attack patterns on the display. Every 7 minutes, they pause their bombardment for exactly 30 seconds. "Dad, show her why." Ghost smiled with quiet pride at his daughter's understanding. "Those pauses allow their deep space scouts to report fleet movements toward Kepler. The moment Imperial forces commit to defending the platform, the real attack launches against the core worlds." Admiral HFY felt her combat instincts responding to his analysis. "Then we're walking into exactly what they want. How do we counter it?" "We give them what they expect, but not how they expect it," Ghost said. "Maya, activate the field generators, full dispersal pattern." The ship transformed around them. What had appeared to be a simple human transport revealed itself as something far more sophisticated. Maya's father hadn't just built defensive technology, he had created an entirely new class of warship designed around principles no one else understood. The Prometheus dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, and immediately the Syndicate forces began reacting to their presence. Dark matter weapons charged and swiveled toward the newcomer. "They're targeting us," reported Lieutenant Commander Vex, the Draknari tactical officer who had volunteered to join the mission. 12 Syndicate vessels, all heavy cruisers, preparing to fire." "Let them," Ghost said calmly. "Maya, are we recording full telemetry for Imperial Command?" "Yes, Dad. Every sensor in the fleet will see exactly what happens next." The Syndicate ships opened fire simultaneously. Streams of dark matter energy that could penetrate any known defensive system lanced across space toward the Prometheus. The Imperial forces watching from long range held their breath, expecting to witness the destruction of the legendary Ghost and his daughter. Instead, something impossible happened. The dark matter beams simply vanished. Not absorbed, not deflected, they lost cohesion 20 meters from the Prometheus hull and dissipated into harmless particles. The ship sat in the middle of what should have been devastating bombardment, completely untouched. "Field generators operating at 12% capacity," Maya reported. "Dad, they're hitting us with everything they have, and we're barely noticing it." Admiral HFY watched in amazement as the display showed the Syndicate ships increasing their fire rate, pouring more and more energy into attacks that accomplished nothing. "This is extraordinary. But how does it help us defeat them? They can simply withdraw once they realize their weapons are ineffective." Ghost's expression grew more serious. "Admiral, my daughter has shown you the defensive applications of our research. But dark matter manipulation works both ways. If you can neutralize it, you can also control it." He nodded to Maya, who activated a different system. Suddenly, the space around the Syndicate ships began to shimmer with the same energy that had protected the Prometheus. "What's happening to them?" Lieutenant Commander Vex asked, his voice carrying undertones of amazement. "Their own weapons are turning against them," Ghost explained. "We're not just neutralizing dark matter, we're redirecting it. Every shot they fire is being captured and sent back to its origin." The tactical display showed the Syndicate ships being struck by their own weapons. Hulls designed to project dark matter energy had no defense against receiving it. One by one, the massive cruisers began to suffer catastrophic system failures. "Impossible," breathed Admiral HFY. "You've turned their greatest strength into their fatal weakness." "It gets better," Maya said, monitoring multiple displays simultaneously. "Dad, The Deep Space Scouts are reporting our position to the main Syndicate fleet. They think they've witnessed our only ship being destroyed." Ghost nodded with satisfaction. "Right on schedule. Admiral, in approximately 40 minutes, the Syndicate's main force will drop out of hyperspace near the Altarian home system. They believe the path is clear for their primary assault." "How many ships?" Admiral Kesahai asked, though she dreaded the answer. "Intelligence estimates suggest 60 vessels, including their command dreadnought," Ghost replied. "More than enough to overwhelm any conventional defense." The Admiral's four arms moved in agitation. "Even with your technology, one ship against 60 is suicide. The field generators may protect us, but we can't possibly engage that many enemies simultaneously." Ghost's smile carried the same quiet confidence that had once broken enemy fleets across 3 star systems. "Admiral, who said anything about one ship?" Maya activated the communications array, sending signals on frequencies that Admiral Kesahai didn't recognize. "Dad, all units are reporting ready. 37 ships in position." 37? The Admiral stared at the display, which showed only empty space around the Prometheus. "Where?" "Everywhere," Ghost said simply. "Admiral, humans have been members of the Empire for 3 centuries. Did you think we spent that entire time doing nothing?" The space around them began to reveal its secrets. One by one, human ships decloaked from stealth systems so advanced that Imperial sensors had never detected them. Each vessel carried the same dark matter manipulation technology as the Prometheus, but configured for different tactical roles. "Stealth technology this advanced should be impossible," Admiral Kesahai whispered. "The power requirements alone are easily managed when you understand quantum field manipulation," Maya finished. "Dad didn't just solve the dark matter problem, he solved the fundamental energy problem that's limited military technology for millennia." Ghost moved to the command center, and suddenly Admiral Kesahai was witnessing something that no being outside humanity had seen in 37 years. Ghost in full tactical command mode. "All units, assume formation Echo 7. Primary targets are command and control vessels. Secondary targets are weapons platforms. Do not engage until the enemy commits fully to their assault vector." The human fleet moved with precision that Admiral Kesahai had never seen before. No wasted motion, no hesitation. Every ship perfectly coordinated with every other ship. It was like watching a dance choreographed by mathematics itself. "Admiral," Ghost said, "I'm transmitting our tactical plan to Imperial Command. Your fleets should coordinate with our engagement to ensure no Syndicate vessels escape." "Dr. Chen, Ghost, this is extraordinary. But why reveal all of this now? Humanity could have maintained these advantages indefinitely." Ghost looked at his daughter, and Admiral Kesahai saw something that transcended species boundaries. The love of a father who had built the future to protect everything he cared about. "Admiral, my daughter is 22 years old. In her lifetime, the galaxy has known 3 major wars, countless smaller conflicts, and now faces an enemy that threatens every peaceful civilization. I spent decades developing this technology not to give humanity an advantage, but to give everyone a chance at peace." The tactical display showed the Syndicate main fleet dropping out of hyperspace near Altaria, exactly as Ghost had predicted. 60 massive ships moving with the confidence of predators who believed their prey was defenseless. "Beginning engagement," Ghost announced calmly. "Maya, full power to all systems. Time to end this war." The human fleet struck like thunder from a clear sky. Syndicate ships that had terrorized the galaxy for months found themselves facing weapons they couldn't defend against, tactics they couldn't counter, and an enemy who had spent decades preparing for exactly this moment. Within 2 hours, it was over. The Syndicate fleet was destroyed or captured, their command structure eliminated, and their threat to galactic peace ended forever. As Admiral HFY watched the tactical displays showing the complete victory, she realized that everything had changed. Not just the end of the war, but the fundamental balance of power in the galaxy. Humanity had revealed capabilities that surpassed every other species, yet they chose to share rather than dominate. "Dr. Chen," she said formally, "the Empire owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid." Ghost shook his head quietly. "Admiral, the Empire doesn't owe humanity anything. We're all part of the same civilization. When the galaxy faces threats, we face them together. That's what my daughter will help the Council understand in the coming months." Maya smiled at her father, then at Admiral HFY. "The war is over, but the real work is just beginning. We have a lot of technology to share and a lot of peace to build." As the human fleet began coordinating with Imperial forces for cleanup operations, Admiral HFY realized that she had witnessed something historic. Not just the end of a war, but the beginning of a new era where humanity's greatest strength wasn't their advanced technology, but their choice to use it for everyone's benefit. The galaxy would never be the same. And perhaps, Admiral HFY thought as she watched father and daughter working together to coordinate relief efforts, that was exactly what it needed.